This is All India Radio. In the weekly program Current Affairs, under our special series Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat at 100, now we bring you a discussion on India's journey towards a cashless society. The participants are Punit Jain, Economic Analyst, and Arjun J. Chaudhary, AIR Correspondent.
The Digital India Mission was launched in July 2015 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi with an aim to transform India. Digital India's goal is to digitally empower society by infusing digital technologies into the public service ecosystem with the use of information technology and to make India adept at emerging technologies to transform the country into a leading knowledge economy. The concept of digital economy has been on the rise since 2015 by the Digital India campaign. The idea was to create a cashless transactions ecosystem in the country to achieve the goal for a transparent and accountable business activity by 2030. As we are celebrating the journey of 100 episodes of Mann Ki Baat, today we will bring you a detailed analysis on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision on a cashless society. On many episodes of Mann Ki Baat and on other platforms, the Prime Minister stressed on the importance of the digital cashless economy. Let us listen to the Prime Minister address in the 98th episode of the monthly broadcast Mann Ki Baat over the All India Radio Network, where the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, richly hailed India's digital strides in recent years.
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, तेजी से आगे बढ़ते हमारे देश में डिजिटल इंडिया की ताकत कोने-कोने में दिख रही है। डिजिटल इंडिया की शक्ति को घर-घर पहुंचाने में अलग-अलग ऐप्स की बड़ी भूमिका होती है और इसका प्रभाव आज हम हर क्षेत्र में देख रहे हैं। भारत के यूपीआई की ताकत भी आप जानते ही हैं। दुनिया के कितने ही देश इसकी तरफ आकर्षित हैं। कुछ दिन पहले ही भारत और सिंगापुर के बीच यूपीआई पे नाउ लिंक लॉन्च किया गया। अब सिंगापुर और भारत के लोग अपने मोबाइल फोन से उसी तरह पैसे ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं जैसे वे अपने अपने देश के अंदर करते हैं। मुझे खुशी है कि लोगों ने इसका लाभ उठाना शुरू कर दिया है। भारत का ई संजीवनी ऐप हो या फिर यूपीआई, ये ईज ऑफ लिविंग को बढ़ाने में बहुत मददगार साबित हुए हैं।
Now we will ask economic analyst Mr. Sharat Kohli what the stats of record UPI transactions in India showing and how it is giving a boost to digital transactions in the country.
Well, I think the numbers speak for themselves. The pace at which it has grown in the last 5.5 years, the spread it has shown across the country, the reach it has shown all through the geographical limits of the country is unimaginable. I remember when this was launched in 2016, there were people saying that this is going to probably be, who's going to understand this? This is going to be limited to a few people. And, this will only be used by some selective businesses who've got CFOs and who understand the complicated world of financial technology. But little did people know that this is going to become a household phenomenon. And I think the 13 trillion rupees or 125.94, if I try and be precise, in 2022, with 74 billion transactions. And, the growth is visible. I mean, we don't even need to go to 2016. You just have to compare it with 2021. In 2021, I remember there were 38 billion transactions, which was almost half this number. And the total quantum of money or the transactions were 71.54 billion rupees. So from 71.54 billion rupees to almost 125.94 trillion rupees, I think this shows the scale and this shows the kind of reach which UPI has. I think we need to compliment National Payment Corporation of India, NPCI, who's managing this whole affair. And above all, the Finance Ministry, who took the initiative. And then we should not forget the banks who have participated in this whole phenomena, in this whole revolution, I would say. Now, the new phenomena which has happened is where you don't need to keep money in your wallet. The money can be safely lying in your bank account. And you could easily transact through your wallet, through the UPI mechanism. So I think all in all, Ravi, it has completely changed the whole dimension of making financial transactions in India, which is why you are seeing the kind of volumes that we just spoke about.
Since the launch of UPI, it has been a cornerstone of digital transactions in India. Now we will listen to the economic analyst Shri A.K. Bhattacharya on what he says about the success of UPI in India and how its ease of usage is benefiting the masses at large.
This is an interface which has got three main purposes. At one level, it allows a user of a mobile phone to download the app and link that app to his or her bank account and make transactions on that, whether for payment to a service provider or a goods provider, or to transfer money from one bank account to another bank account. Now, this happens in a seamless way through an OTP recognition of the user. So it's a fairly simple, easy transaction methodology using a technological platform called Unified Payment Interface. It has been embraced. The fact that it has been embraced very quickly, particularly during the COVID time, is proof that at a time when people were not going out to their banks, going out to buying goods or services to the place, they were using the UPI platform. Because still October 2019, the usage was only of 1 billion transactions, and now it has gone up in the last 3 years, it has gone up to 6 billion transactions. So that itself shows that how during the COVID time, its utility and its use actually gone up several times.
It is clear that India is heading towards a cashless society as the government is encouraging this change for the modern society. The growth of the fintech sector, along with fintech startups, has made India the third largest startup network in the world. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi says, credit for this should go to the youth of this country who played a pivotal role in the digital transformation. The Unified Payments Interface, UPI, and other electronic modes of payment have become hugely popular. All these efforts make India's road towards a cashless society from a thought to a possibility. I'm joined by Shri Punit Jain on our discussion on India's journey towards a cashless society. How important it is for electronic transfer of money to take place so that the circulation of money for the exchange of goods and services takes place seamlessly. Punit, a warm welcome to you on the program.
Thank you, Arjun.
Punit, do tell us, for the benefit of our listeners, how important it is to have a cashless society. What are the benefits for this, both for the consumer and for the government as well, which has set up the infrastructure for this?
So, Arjun, I think the benefits of a cashless society are beginning to manifest themselves now as we see India's economic growth really pick up despite challenges like pandemic, despite the fact that India is a vast country with huge rural population which did not have access to financial services at all. And in brief, I can say that the move towards cashless society, towards a digital society, digital payment society, has actually empowered millions and millions of people in villages, in semi-urban areas to access financial services. So banking, insurance, savings, shopping, everything. I mean, it's all enabled because we have a cashless society. And I think the journey towards this cashless society actually began in 2014 when the Prime Minister laid down his vision of integrating Jan Dhan accounts with Aadhaar and with mobile numbers. At that time, we could not really understand what he was saying. But today, when we see how this has, this goes across the entire spectrum of our living, from direct benefit transfers to our spending habits, to entertainment, to savings, everything is now touched by the digital money. And therefore, I would say that cashless society is now the way forward for the economy.
Punit, the average citizen has used the benefit of a cashless society by getting the direct benefit transfer and carrying out on-the-spot transactions, also getting a refund of taxes from the IT department. How do you see this evolving further? We understand that there are technologies which are coming into the market right now. How do you see that as an upgrade to what is already present?
So, Arjun, you rightly touched upon 2-3 main pillars of this cashless system and the benefits from it. The 3 primary goals that the cashless economy or the digital economy provides is first is a financial inclusion, like we discussed earlier. Far-flung areas of India, today they can easily access bank accounts and they can access money. Earlier it was very difficult for us to take physical money to those areas and to those people, to the poor and the people who do not have the resources. So financial inclusion. Secondly, a major problem in India was tackling the shadow economy. We all know, we never talk about it in details for obvious reasons, but the truth is that India had a very large shadow economy there's a cash economy, black money economy, and this was outside the ambit of taxation and governance completely, and which really drags down the entire economic growth process. So tackling the shadow economy was second major issue. And third, of course, was promoting the general growth in the economy through promoting digital shopping, through entertainment. So how do you make that happen unless you can make payments online? So today we know we can make shopping on our mobile phones, through our PCs, or through our television, and we can transfer money through mobile wallets or whatever. So clearly, these three objectives were the main objectives. And like you mentioned, the entire taxation system, a huge amount of money used to escape the tax debt by unscrupulous people because they would deal in cash simply. And therefore, it was never recorded. But today, if you look at the amount of data that the government has in terms of accessing the transaction numbers, they can track the large transactions. And the benefit, of course, is also there. So the honest taxpayers, they get their money back, refunds almost instantaneously. The day I filed my income tax return, I think I got my refund within a week or so. And that is the speed. Earlier, it used to take several months, in fact, many years, sometimes to get refunds. So those benefits are also available. So there are certain objectives which have been fulfilled and huge benefits which have come to honest taxpayers also.
Punit, just coming back to the transaction side of this business, especially the spot transactions, we have seen the growth of new age companies, especially fintech companies. How do you see that benefiting the economy, both in terms of the loan advanced and the interest payments that they charge?
So, Arjun, interestingly, the architects of this digital economy did a very interesting thing. They said that, okay, the basic infrastructure for digital payments will be developed by the government of India because it needs huge investment and does not give you immediate returns. Because if initially you had levied very large charges on transactions, then this infrastructure would not have developed. So government said, okay, we will do the basic infrastructure development through the National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, promoted by Government of India. So entire development expenditure was done by Government of India. But after that, for developing applications on it, so you look at all the mobile wallets, you look at all fintech companies, then they invited the private sector fintech startups, entrepreneurs, to develop applications on this platform. So we saw, so there was one basic application, which was a Bhim UPI developed by Government of India, but they also allowed other private sector payment applications to be developed and then integrated with various platforms. So if you go to any shopping platform, you can use XYZ UPI apps, you can also use RuPay credit debit cards, you can also use net banking. So many options were there, and all integrated on the digital backbone that we had developed. So that is how the government did a very smart thing. They did not put the burden of development on entrepreneurs, on private sector, but they allowed private sector to become a partner in developing and applications through which these transactions were then promoted and spread across the country.
So now we have identities created as a result of payments disclosures, especially through the payments banks. How do you see the rural economy benefiting from this? How does the government actually collate this information and then extend its benefits and shape its policies?
So 2 or 3 very important things are happening vis-a-vis the rural economy when I look at the digital payment ecosystem. In fact, I would say the biggest beneficiary of the digital payment system is rural India. And in fact, urban India is also gaining, but I think rural India, which was completely cut off from the financial system, that has become a integral part of the entire national economy, largely through the digital payment system. First, of course, we know is the most important thing, which is the DBT, the direct benefit transfers. And famously, it was said that almost 60 to 70% of the money which leaves government coffers and almost 60-70% would leak before it reached the ultimate beneficiary. Now, through the DBT, we know whether it is Ujjwala schemes, you give subsidies for buying gas cylinders or any other subsidies, Prime Minister Kisan Yojana, all this money goes directly into bank accounts of beneficiaries. So practically there is no leakage. So I think that is a huge benefit. Even when we look at programs like MG Narega and other programs, DBT is now the main method of disbursing government subsidies, government support, and I think that has really benefited people in the rural areas. Secondly, when we look at transferring funds from urban India to rural India, again, it was a lot of hassle earlier because cash transfers were very difficult. There would be leakage, there would be theft, it was not secure, and people in rural India could not keep their money safe. Digital, by promoting Jan Dhan accounts, linking them to Aadhaar, linking them to the mobile, I think that ability of rural India to save money that has really gone up a lot. And even money transfers, and immigrants are working in cities and they want to send money to their families in villages. Earlier it was so difficult, and you and I know, and so many anecdotes, that this money would be stolen, it would not be safe, and very little money actually used to reach their relatives. Today we know they can seamlessly transfer this money to the families in rural India. It's a huge benefit. You can't even imagine the kind of relief it gives to our people there. And thirdly, and very importantly, goods and services from rural India, they are now accessible to us through mobile applications, through online shopping portals, and we can make payments directly through them. See, earlier you could not do it. Even if there were goods and services, I could not make payments for it. If I had to give cash money, then again transferring money, taking it to villages was very difficult. So both ways. So money coming from urban India to rural India has increased a lot. Also goods and services from rural India to urban India, that has also increased a lot. I think that is all part of this digital ecosystem, and the main backbone is the cashless society or digital payments. The ease of doing those payments is important.
Let's focus on remittances. We know that international remittances are done by SWIFT. Domestic remittances are being done because of the digital payments that is available right now, especially through real-time payment and spot transactions. But what about cross-border transactions? How do you see this infrastructure that has been put up being able to replace SWIFT, which is more expensive in terms of cross-border transactions?
So you're right. I mean, when we get into the world, very sophisticated world of international finance, most of the countries in the world are outliers. Only a handful of countries, or 2 or 3 countries maybe in the world, they have complete monopoly over the settlement system. So whether you want to make a payment from, let's say, Indonesia to Hawaii, the payment has to go through the international system, which is basically in New York, and charges have to be paid there, and banks in New York or Zurich or London would be involved. You could not make international transactions seamlessly without going through these channels. Even today, that is a challenge. But we are now beginning to pose some kind of a challenge to this international system. But first of all, of course, we have the RuPay system. Now, RuPay system is an alternative to the global. There are 2-3 systems. You know, I mean, there's MasterCard, there's Visa, and there are SWIFT. There are 3 or 4 global settlement systems, and we all have to use it and pay charges for it. But RuPay is a domestically developed system where, of course, domestic settlements are now taking place, and now it has been integrated with, to some extent, the countries. Even in Europe, we have got a few countries which are now willing to settle through the RuPay mechanism and not through the other international mechanisms. So we are beginning to get there. There's a long journey ahead. It's not easy. I think in this journey, the use of UPI by certain countries, we know Singapore has recently integrated UPI into their payment system. The RuPay cards and debit cards and credit cards have been integrated into UPI. So it is beginning to spread internationally, but still we are in very early stages. But I think we have potential to be there. We have potential to pitch India-based settlement system as a major alternative.
Well, earlier the average consumer did not have to deal with the currency system like they have to do now, because there are developments, especially in fintech, and how currency has now moved from paper and coin-based to paperless, and it's become digital. What is a digital rupee, and how is that different from the rupee that is electronically transmitted domestically?
Interestingly, the Reserve Bank of India has introduced what is called the Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC. It is a digital form of the rupee. So no physical rupee will exist for this. It is just, you can say to some extent, the digital currencies that we have in the world right now, also called as cryptocurrencies. But those cryptocurrencies, of course, have no backing and they have no worth at all. Whereas the digital rupee has a similar worth as that of a normal rupee that we use. Now, the benefit of a digital currency is that when you move, let's say if you want to move rupee from India to USA, you can't do it. I mean, physically you have to take that currency, probably fly it to USA, and there's a physical limit to it. But in case of digital currencies, you can move digital currency across borders, across geographies without any problem in an instant second. So eventually, the true benefit of digital currencies is that they will transcend borders without any hurdle. And like right now, if you want to trade in Bitcoin, you can buy in New York, you can sell in Singapore, and there is very little that is in terms of border hurdles which are there. Right now, if you do that with physical currency, you can't get that much US dollars into India and then send them to Singapore. So digital currencies are extremely important when you want to move currencies through large distances and in large quantum. And because there's a huge amount of safety in digital currency. Physical currency always has a threat of being stolen or being destroyed or being damaged. damaged. So digital currency, I think, will become extremely important when it comes to cross-border transactions and large amounts of transactions. But again, it's a very, very early days for digital currencies. It will take some time.
Punit, just as a precursor, one tries to understand the value of a digital currency because our listeners would like to know how value is assigned to a currency. It's not just that the RBI recognizes it, that it's legal tender according to the RBI Act of 1934. What is the underlying value of the national currency, and why is it that there is still interest in cryptocurrencies?
First issue is about cryptocurrencies. See why they became popular. A lot of people say that they have absolutely no worth, they have no net worth, and therefore they are worthless. But yet you find that there's a lot of demand for certain cryptocurrencies. Why? Because they do play a very important role in international finance. Like I mentioned earlier, let's say I want to make certain payment to somebody sitting in Switzerland, and it is unaccounted money, let's say, hypothetically. I don't want to disclose it to government. So all these people, so-called unscrupulous people, what they will do is they will buy Bitcoin anonymously on the internet, and then they will make that payment through some digital wallet in some nickname to a person sitting, let's say, in Switzerland or in Bahamas or someplace. And it is completely anonymous. So there is a lot of people found this useful to transfer money from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction without controls by central banks, without control by governments. And that is the biggest value that digital currencies brought to the world. Now, of course, beyond, so you would have heard this. I mean, digital currencies are majorly used right now. If you look at the cryptocurrencies, are majorly used for crime activities, for all kinds of unlawful and illegal activities. And because it is completely anonymous, you can't trace the person behind it. However, they do serve a very important economic purpose, like I mentioned, beyond criminal activities and unsavory things that you can do with it. So the central banks, the world's central banks are saying that, okay, we recognize the utility of cryptocurrencies or the digital currency in these kind of transactions, and therefore they are now willing to provide official alternatives. So a person who wants to do a transaction with legitimate money, he doesn't have to buy Bitcoin to send to his son in Singapore. He can take the Indian digital rupee, send it to Singapore, where he can get converted to some other currency. So I think a lot of people who want to deal with this kind of transaction, they will find central bank digital currency very useful. And like I said, this is the official money. Now, how do you ascribe value to it? Values are ascribed to currencies based on a perceived exchange value of that currency. See, what happens usually, there's no, when you say 1 rupee means nothing. I mean, in a sense, in absolute sense. It only means something when what goods can 1 rupee buy. So in times of inflation, the value will go down, obviously, because I can buy less wheat, let's say, or rice with it. So a value of a currency is based on what you can buy with that currency. And right now, of course, cryptocurrencies, some of the cryptocurrencies have value because you can buy currencies or you can buy goods with it. But in the long term, I think most cryptocurrencies are worthless. But national digital currencies, they will have value because they will be honored by the respective governments.
We're also seeing the government cashless procurement system under GEM. How is that improving the procuring standards of different departments and agencies of Government of India?
As you mentioned, whether GEMS or the ONDC, which we are introducing, which is an alternative platform for shopping, see, all these platforms which offer opportunities for exchange of goods and services. So if you want to buy something, GEMS is basically a government platform where they buy goods on tender from small-scale manufacturers and government procurements. So how do you ultimately settle it? I mean, if I place an order on GEMS and I buy certain things, ultimately the payments have to be made through the digital mechanism. Earlier, you have very elaborate system of validating it, tenders being called, and very complicated, and it would lead to delays and corruption. Today, it is a very transparent system. You can bid your goods there. If they are the lowest, you can sell them, and you get the payment in your bank account. See, there is very little face-to-face interaction, which used to cause delays and corruption earlier. So, if you look at the online digital network that is being developed for small-scale manufacturers in India, which is something like online marketplace, which is being developed, or the GEMS network, all these are basically, they will be successful only if there's a seamless digital payment system available. If there's a cashless system available. If the government has to send a check to the seller, of course it will not work because, there'll be delays and it will not happen. If you really look at this measure, you will realize that, in fact, I was looking at data and I was surprised. In last 5-6 years, the number of digital transactions in India have grown a few 100 crore transactions a year. This year, probably we will have about 15,000 crore transactions, digital transactions in this year, which is basically 100 digital transactions per year. And almost the cumulative value is almost 10,000 rupees per person every year. This is huge. I mean, this is by far the largest payment system. And see, when we do this, the whole game is the value of transactions this year probably will be about 15 lakh crores. 15 lakh crores of settlements happening is amazing. And it happens 24 hours. You will be aware that now NEFT and RTGS have been made a round-the-clock system. So you can, if you make a payment in the night, it will get settled in the night. It is not earlier the banks had to open at 10 o'clock and then RBI will do settlements. That doesn't happen now. It is a round-the-clock, 24-hour settlement happening. In the stock markets, actually, I was surprised, and this just started a few days back. If I sell my shares today, I get money in my bank account by tomorrow afternoon. Within 24 hours of selling shares, you get the money in your bank account, which is T+1 system. And it is possible only because of the digital integration which has happened vis-a-vis delivery of shares and receipt of payments. And this is amazing. We are only the second country in the world which is able to achieve this. This is amazing. We are the second country in the world to achieve this kind of quick settlement of funds.
Well, from the stock market settlement system, what about the healthcare services? You have the e-Sanjeevani app, which is cashless and contactless.
What we realized, in fact, I think again the credit must go to those visionaries who laid down this entire infrastructure. Way back in 2014, when the Prime Minister was talking about Jain, basically Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobile, did not realize that all digital interactions on the internet will ultimately need a back-end payment system. See, if there is no payment system, if I can't pay for your Zoom calls and you can't pay for your online subscriptions to journals and newspapers or anything else, then the digital economy will not take off. See, at the back end of every service that you use on the internet, you need to make some payment. Even to access your mobile phone, you need to make a payment. So clearly, if the digital infrastructure had not been developed, if this ability to pay online bills, for instance, you remember the days when we used to stand in line to pay electricity bills and telephone bills. We don't even realize when the bills are paid. They're automatically paid from your bank accounts. So all these things happened because 5-7 years back, there was somebody who could foresee that this is where the economy will grow and we need this back-end settlement system. Imagine if we did not have NPCI, if we did not have UPI, what would be happening? We would be dependent on foreign companies to provide the settlement system in India. Now, those companies don't do it for free. They will put a certain charge. At the moment, you remember, credit cards, when you use, the merchant has to pay a very hefty service charge to the credit card company. Now, if those kind of charges were levied, we would never have developed. People would not have been able to pay those charges. So it was Government of India's effort to set up NPCI and to set up our own payment gateway that has been able to develop digital economy in India.
Finally, Punit, we have the Digital India campaign which started in 2015. How would you rate its development not only now, but in the years to come, especially with new technology creeping in?
I'm absolutely amazed by the strides India has made in this field. We are at the cutting edge of the technology because of the vision being laid out for this sector. We are implementing 5G, which will enable a lot more automation, lot more captive networks, and speed of transactions will happen. We already talk about 6G, and India has some 150 patents already for 6G technology in different applications. So this is a very fast developing, fast moving area of technology. Fortunately, India has this blueprint to follow. I think we really need it. I think India is one country which badly needed to grow through these means. There was no way we could have physically grown into these areas of development. And I think much of the credit for the growth that we are seeing in Indian economy today is largely attributable to digital payment system and the cashless system that we have.
Well, thank you so much, Punit, for being with us on this program and talking to us extensively about India's journey towards a cashless society from 2015 onwards till date. Thank you so much, Punit.
Thank you, Arjun.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat at 100, India's journey towards a cashless society. The participants were Punit Jain, Economic Analyst, and Arjun Chaudhary, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 928 90 94044.